Well, joining us now here on the program, pleased to have an agronomy conversation with Rebecca Minch, Concept Agritech agronomist based in the Eastern Corn Belt. She joins us here on the program today. And Rebecca, thanks for the time. Let's just start. Give us a quick update. How are things going in your territory across the Eastern Corn Belt as far as spring planting?
Yeah, well, recently we've gotten some better weather. We've gotten a lot of this nice, humid, hot weather that's been helping us kind of get some dry down here in the fields. Previously, we've had some above average rainfall these past couple weeks, so it's been a little bit of a struggle to get some guys going into the fields. The southern part of my territory, we've got some guys rolling a little more kind of closer to that Kentucky area, but up for the northern area, we've actually had a lot of rain. So we're finally getting to the fields here. We finally got some dirt turning over, and we're finally getting some planting done. So it's been a busy week for me, at least.
Well, good to hear we're getting some work done. I know that calendar continuing to tick closer and closer to June. So obviously a lot of guys and gals want to get their planting wrapped up for sure. So I appreciate the update. Let's get into the heart of our discussion today. And I was very intrigued when I was sent this note on some of the recent research that you have been doing and looking at GDUs and if GDU variation, if it's enough to make a difference in crop production. So set this up for us, Rebecca. Give us kind of the overview to start of your research and some of the things you've been finding.
Yeah, so just to give a little background. So I was asked to kind of create a video addressing this topic here this previous year in 2023, kind of towards the end of harvest. As you probably know, and as many know across the country, I mean, we've had some issues with some dry down and really getting our crops out of the fields this last fall. So I kind of took a deeper dive and looked a little bit more into GDUs. So I kind of pulled a lot of data here from April 1st to December 1st of 2023. And I also pulled the same dates for the previous 2 years as well. So 2021 and 2022 as well. And I pulled that from Carsonville, Michigan, which I chose that because I actually have a grower up in that area. And then that's a 400-mile difference from where I live in Monticello, Indiana, which is the second point that I pulled data from. So kind of over that time frame, I mean, I pulled everything and accumulated all those GDUs to kind of figure out where we were sitting compared to the past 2 years. And surprisingly, but unsurprisingly, when I pulled that data, I mean, we were 300 to 500 GDUs behind what we were for the past previous years. So that's a huge difference. I mean, that's about 13 to 15 GDUs per day difference of what we weren't getting. So it has a lot to do with growth and maturation during the season. But I mean, that's kind of at least a little bit of background of what we were kind of seeing when we pulled that.
Well, and you mentioned those numbers kind of surprising to take a look at. And, I know thinking especially last year, how well the crop turned out in many areas with some of the weather challenges we had and more. I mean, what's been the biggest takeaway you've gotten from looking at all of this data, Rebecca?
Honestly, I think the biggest takeaway is that if we don't get those heat units that we need during the season, I mean, your crop's not going to mature at the rate that it really needs to. We had a lot of issues with growth this year. I mean, or this past year, I should say. I mean, 2023 was a really hard year for us with planting. I know it was really wet when guys wanted to get into the ground, and then it was really dry for the rest of the season. So I think the biggest takeaway I'd say is definitely that we're just not getting that growth and maturation that we need throughout the season. And in result, we saw a lot of the crops coming out very late in the fields this year.
Well, and I think about those heat units, and I know you did a lot of this research in the Eastern Corn Belt, but we've seen a lot of weather pattern shifts really across the country. And I know, the Western Corn Belt too has seen its fair share. So, one has to wonder if you expand your research, do you think maybe we're kind of hypothesizing here? Do you think maybe you'd find some of the same type of result if you look at other areas of the Corn Belt?
I would definitely say that. I know that I pulled a couple slides on my presentation that I did here in December for our dealer meeting at the company. And I mean, if you just look at the smoke overlay from, I think it was July 18th to the 19th are the dates that I pulled, and you can specifically see that the smoke coverage over the U.S. and just the Midwest, if we talk specifically, that western side was 160 to 180 days of smoke cover, and that was consistent with what we've been seeing here in the eastern part too. So I definitely would say that there was probably a lot of issues with GDUs and trying to get that accumulation that we needed here in the west as well.
So what would you tell growers as they're looking, obviously they're getting this crop planted for 2024. We got to get into the growing season, so many weather unknowns, but if they're concerned as we get into this growing season about getting those heat units and GDUs and more, I mean, what would you tell growers to keep in the back of their mind as you've looked at this research?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing that I like to focus on when I talk to my growers, especially when we talk about, I mean, any type of weather realistically, I like to talk about stress mitigation. I think is the biggest thing that just the whole company as a whole really does talk about. I mean, make sure that, for example, I guess, make sure that when you're looking at your corn this season, look at the signs, scout your fields. See what's kind of going in there. If you're burning up from the bottom, maybe we need to take some tissues and really focus on the nutrients that you're going to be needing. I think it's a really important thing to go through your fields and just make sure that you're actually seeing what's happening out there and just making the changes and adjustments that you need to because of that.
Scouting is so important. I've always echoed that sentiment over the years. Sometimes if a 100-degree day happens, Rebecca, you might not want to get out there and walk a field, but it's so important, isn't it?
It is. It's extremely important. I mean, the stuff that I see just walking through the fields, I mean, we've had a lot of really good catches walking some acres. It's a very important thing. Definitely. Well, if folks want to learn more about Concept Agritech, or they want to reach out to you and maybe talk about some of this research, things like that, I'm sure they can contact you guys online very easily. Where can they find more information? You could definitely just go to our website. I know that we have our phone number, and there's an email associated with that as well. That will go to the office. So you can definitely go through that avenue, and they will get you to where you need to be and who you want to contact. And I think that's probably the easiest way to go about it.
All right. ConceptAgritech.com is that website where you could find more information. And Rebecca, as we wrap up our conversation real quick, any final thoughts you would share about your research, or any agronomic tips you'd want to share with growers here or reiterate to them here as we look at the 2024 growing season?
I would really just urge you to there's a lot of resources out there, and make sure that you're using those resources. I know I talked a lot about just pulling data off of like the National Weather Service, but I mean, you can use apps like Ag PhD's GDU calculator. And if you really want to take a deeper dive and look into what's happening in your area, I mean, you can stitch that location to exactly where your fields are, and it'll accumulate all the GDUs for you in season. So that's a really great resource to be using if you really want to take a deeper look into that and kind of see what's happening in your fields. But once again, I would like to say, just make sure you're scouting and focus on stress mitigation this season. I think it's going to be an up and coming thing that we're going to be seeing year after year.
Well, again, learn more online at ConceptAgritech.com. With that, Rebecca Minch, agronomist with Concept Agritech. Rebecca, thanks for joining us here on the program today. Appreciate the time.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Make sure to subscribe to the Market Talk YouTube channel. You can watch our latest interviews with top market analysts in the country, find bonus content, and much more. It's easy. Just go to youtube.com/@MarketTalkAg and hit the subscribe button. Or you can search for Market Talk Ag on YouTube.